Hey, this is Wayne and
Cindy
Rogers, and we are glad that you're joining us in this podcast. We are excited to talk about the 416 Ministries with you and to spend a little bit of time just kind of talking about our background and kind of what led us to this point, and to talk about, I don't know, just what we hope to accomplish in this stateside mission work. And so maybe a little bit, who are you, Cindy?
Oh, well, I am Cindy Rogers, and I was born in tiny little southern Georgia town. Well, I was born in Waycross, Georgia, but raised in Manor, Georgia, spelled Manor. It's very country. Yep. And so met Wayne when we were seniors in high school. He stalked me a little bit, and
Admittedly.
we dated for almost 4 years and got married, and have lived in, well, he was in the Navy when we first got married, so we were in Jacksonville, Florida then, and then after the Navy, he decided about a year later that he wanted to preach. And so I didn't marry a preacher, but I've been blessed to be part of a preaching family, and so we've been doing that for like 28 years, local work.
Yeah. We did local work for 28 years with several different congregations in the Southeast. All of our work has been in the Southeast, and so that's certainly what we know and what we've experienced. We've traveled a good bit, and so we've visited congregations out west and some in the Midwest as well. And so just what we're hoping that we can, well, I guess before we get into that, why 416? What is 416, right?
Where is it from? Which book of the Bible is 416?
We've been teased about this a little bit, but Ephesians 4:16, where it talks about being fitly framed together, causing the body to grow, and so edifying the body of Christ in love is if you will, that's our tagline from the last phrase of that passage in Ephesians 4:16. But in that whole passage, it talks about the growth of the church and how the speaking the truth in love in the previous verse, and how that God had planned for there to be teachers and for there to be ministers, and of course at that time in the first century apostles and so forth. But in our work, what we've certainly, he was obviously, God had in mind that he was doing that to benefit the church, to help the church to grow in the first century, even prior to obviously having all of the Bible written. And so there were certainly need for the miraculous back then. And so that's the first part of that passage. But the second part of that passage really is dealing with, okay, well, what's it all about? The teaching of the gospel, the speaking the truth in love, and all of that is so that the body can grow, and so that the body can edify one another in love. And so one thing that we have that I have done especially, but Cindy kind of gave me the idea years ago, and we've been doing this for a long time, was the puzzle piece. And so Ephesians 4:16,
we just bought a puzzle and glued. I remember friends sitting there with us gluing these backs on it, and I dropped it.
So as we started doing that, every first of the year kind of sermon that I would do, I tried to incorporate this idea of trying to encourage members to find their place in the kingdom, and find their place that they can work and to use their talent and so forth.
And I think part of that sermon was also that we're better together. So as we work together, it's going to be better. Yeah.
Someone was paying attention to the sermon. That's good. Or I preached it so many times through the years. That's probably more what it is. But obviously, so we've graduated from the actual puzzle pieces to we've got some new pins, if you will, that we've been using and giving out at PTP and in other places, and so they're really hard to hang on to tonight. But anyway, so as we started thinking about what we wanted to do, kind of in this phase of our work having preached locally in congregations for the better part of 28 years, what could we do to help the congregations grow, to help other congregations grow, to help the brotherhood and the kingdom to grow and to be edified? And of course, it started just making sense that 4:16 was going to be a part of that. Ephesians 4:16, edifying the body of Christ in love, and so we had not really heard of anybody doing this as a big stateside mission work. I know brethren who have traveled and will go and do specific mission points and stuff like that. But we've not really heard of anybody that was doing this as a stateside missionary, of course, all across the country. And so what we have done is we left local work. Obviously, we were at the Eastside Congregation in Maryville, Tennessee, and they were gracious to us and understood kind of what we were doing as we were exiting there. But we sold our house, we bought a bigger truck, and a bigger camper. And so some of you that have followed us and know us, you know that we like to camp anyway, a little more off-roading style stuff, but this one does not go off-road.
No, we used to have a Jeep and a box to sleep in. And now we have an Airstream and a big truck.
Yeah, and so we'll make sure that you have a little bit of that video footage that I took a little while ago, and so we'll put that in the video as well, so you'll be able to see that. And so if you're listening, then make sure that you go to the YouTube page and check that out, and you'll be able to see kind of our setup and what we're doing. And then later, what we hope to do is give a little bit of tour and things like that. So in the podcast, from week to week, and as we're traveling about, what we hope to do is to kind of spotlight or highlight, showcase some areas and different works throughout the brotherhood that are really either needing encouragement or places of great encouragement, whatever the case may be. And so as we're traveling about, those are things that we want to make sure that all of our brotherhood knows about. And so we want to be able to spotlight those good works as well. And so part of this kind of grew out of a young man called me, was going to be going to preaching school, was wanting to be raising funds, and I was asking him. He was from the West, the Northwest in fact, and in our travels, what we've experienced in the West is congregations that are not as strong, and of course they're spread very thin throughout the West, if you will, and so there's it's difficult certainly on preachers. It's difficult for brethren to stay encouraged in those areas because they're not. We're spoiled in the Southeast, I would say, but especially in Tennessee, where there are congregations all over the place, and so we've got brethren, per capita, just kind of, this is the area, if you will. And so, of course, we're based in Memphis now, but as we're doing this work, and by the way, we are partnered with the Memphis School of Preaching. That's where I came to preaching school, and so Cindy went through the wives classes here as well, and so Brother B.J. Clark was gracious to us to say, hey, this is something that we'd like to be a part of and to partner with you, and so and we are glad to have the School of Preaching on board with us, and so that gives us obviously a lot of points of contact. But as we were talking to this young man, I asked him, I said, well, what made you decide the school that you were going to? We had that conversation, and I said, okay, so when you graduate, what are you doing? What's your plan? And he said, well, I'm going back, and this was to Washington State, in fact. And so he said, I'm going to go back to Washington State, and I'm going to plant a congregation. There's not many congregations there, and so I'm going to go back. I said, well, when you do that, you let me know, and we're gonna plan to make a trip, and we'll come out and campaign with you, do whatever we can. This was way before.
We were just going to do a vacation.
We were just going to take a vacation, and go do this work. And so, but this obviously has grown into something that's much larger. And what we have realized, the more that we've talked about it with people, is there is such a need in our brotherhood to be encouraged. And
whether you're a preacher, a preacher's wife, I know as a preacher's wife, I've gone through peaks and valleys and needed encouragement, and always knew I had other preachers' wives, but it sometimes feels lonely. And so I'm hoping that as we go, I can help encourage preachers' wives, elders' wives, and just congregations. I feel like that's just something that is a need, especially after 2020. It feels like we're all trying to get back to the norm, but it's been a struggle for a lot of places. And so I'm hoping that we can just go about encouraging, and it has been the case already since June that we have been encouraged while trying to encourage others.
Yeah.
It always ends up that we go away going, oh, that was so great.
Yeah.
And so hopefully it'll be that we can help doing campaigns or VBS or things like that, but also filling in or doing special classes of whatever is the need.
Yeah, and even, of course, doing gospel meetings and leadership seminars and even edification type seminars. And so I'm working on that and trying to develop that into a series of lessons so that it can be something that can be done, I don't know, like a seminar, weekend seminar. But anyway, so those are some of the things that we know that we will be a part of, and we've already been on campaign with the Forest Hill congregation here with their young people. Their youth went down to Chalmette, Louisiana, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But one of the things that I wanted to mention about just being partnered with the Memphis School of Preaching and how wonderful that is, it's a little bit of a way for us to kind of give back, if you will. For we've been blessed, obviously, to have come through the school and to have met so many brethren, not only here at Forest Hill, but throughout the Brotherhood that have supported us to come to the preaching school and that have helped us through the years, encouraged us, and kind of kept us going. And so part of this really is about preacher retention, and that it just made sense to really partner with the Memphis School of Preaching, because the short version of it is basically they train them and we want to keep them preaching. And so that's what our work is kind of really all about. There's the evangelistic side of it, and certainly we're going to be doing that and continue to do that as we travel about. And so we've already got a busy schedule coming up. We leave here next week, and so next Wednesday, in fact, we take off for East Tennessee, and we'll be at PTP in Sevierville, polishing the pulpit.
Anyone who doesn't know.
Right, polishing the pulpit in Sevierville, Tennessee, and so we'll do that.
And while we're over there, we get to see our family.
Yeah.
So we have 2 boys I didn't mention, and they're married, Chris and Matthew, and then Caitlin and Olivia. Chris is married to Caitlin, Matthew's married to Olivia, and then we have Piper, our granddaughter, and another one on the way.
Yeah.
And
and
it's a girl. She's a girl.
So we need to see them.
So we like to hit East Tennessee any chance we get.
Absolutely. And so we get to spend some time with family, but then we go to polishing the pulpit, and then really what's interesting is we've just kind of in the last couple of weeks kind of set up the next 5 to 6 weeks. Basically looks like going from when we leave polishing the pulpit, we're going into North Carolina with 2 congregations for 2 Sundays, into Virginia, into Pennsylvania, into Vermont, possibly New Hampshire, and then New York, and so outside of Rochester. And so kind of a big circle, and then we've got to come back here for a Scattered Abroad Network campaign. And so seminar, sorry, not a campaign. Scattered Abroad seminar, and so that's really alongside of World Video Bible School and Gospel Broadcasting Network and SAN, Scattered Abroad Network. We're all 3 doing a seminar for the school here, the Memphis School of Preaching. So
it seems like every time we start, we're trying to do regional when we make our plans, so that we're not scooting all around the United States. We want to go everywhere, but we have to be strategic about it because of gas prices and just our sanity. And so we had 2 places that we were for sure going to go.
Yeah.
And since then, God works. I mean, He just does. And so then we got somebody else heard that we were going up that way, and I know a congregation, and then they got us in touch with them. And so as we're going, we want to tell y'all about it through podcasts, through YouTube, however, and we're doing a newsletter. So if you want to be a part of that, you can email us. We'll have all of our information attached. But if you know of a congregation that we can visit, we'll put it on our schedule to go when we go to those regions. In the spring, we're going out west next year, and that's already building
that's a pretty big trip
more
already.
than we ever dreamed. That we're going to be hitting a lot of states going out that way. So keep us in mind if you know of somewhere that just needs encouragement, or maybe a fill-in one Sunday, or just whatever.
Yeah, and while we're trying to work regionally as best we can, as we're coming back and getting back into this area, kind of, into the Memphis area or whatever, we want to make sure that, if we can get somewhere and it's just a real quick trip or something like that,
just a couple hours.
we'll definitely go as quick as we can. But when we think about some of the other things that we want to do by way of podcasting and even YouTube and things like that on our channel, we want to do. We want to take you along with us as we go. We want to show you the country as we go. We want to show you congregations as we go.
And be a pipeline so that we
yeah.
can, where if you're going through that area, sometimes they're in remote locations. And I see on social media all the time, I'm going through here, do you know a place? And so hopefully we can be a pipeline and start getting the word out to these great congregations that are just in remote or rural areas, and that way everybody knows about them,
yeah.
and the word can spread of the works they're doing.
Absolutely. And so, we'll be interviewing preachers and elders as they will, and maybe some members, of congregations as they're willing to do so, and just so that we can kind of highlight, again, some of those good brotherhood works and encourage them, but also let you guys know about them. And so if you're traveling through in a certain way, you go, hey, Wayne and Cindy talked about this congregation over here. Let's make sure, even if we have to get off the path just a little bit, but if we can put that in our plan. Think about how many times someone has visited the congregation and it was just such a shot in the arm. As soon as that person came in,
especially if you're from a small congregation. Especially
in a small congregation, it's when somebody comes in, a visitor comes in, it's almost like everything stops and you want to go back there and hug them. Thank you so much for coming. And you needed that, and you didn't realize that you needed it, but it was so great to have them. And then so, well, imagine that if we go and stop in somewhere, but we're letting other people know, and so somebody says, well, hey, as we're going through that way, we're going to stop at this little congregation too and encourage them. But it's almost always, and you mentioned this earlier, this always happens. Our goal, we want to edify, we want to encourage, we want to build up people, but so many times it's the case that we're the ones that are encouraged from it. And it just always seems to work that way. But we hope that you'll follow along with us and make sure that you subscribe to our channels and all of those things. Our link tree with all of our social media and all of our accounts will be down in the show notes at the bottom of this, and in the notes section on YouTube as well. And so you can click on that and check us out anywhere, and we hope that you will.
We'll talk about marriage and how we're living in this little camper. How we're dealing with that, camper life. Sometimes I might show you how to organize, because I like that kind of thing. That's my jam. And so I'll show that. Small space living. Yes.
And it's funny because a lot of people said, hey, you're going to make sure that,
the apartment.
You, when you come home, you'll have the apartment,
It'll be like
so
luxury.
That'll be like luxury. Well, maybe you don't always think of an apartment as being luxurious, but our home's pretty luxurious. We enjoy it.
We like our camper.
We really love it in here, and so it's been really fun already on the road, and it's easy to pull. I mean, it's 30 feet long, and the truck is almost 21 feet long, I think, or something like that. So it's
I can even drive it.
And Cindy's been driving, so we're having a good time.
Yeah.
And so, but again, thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for joining us on YouTube if you are. We're just so grateful to be able to do this work, and God has truly blessed us in so many ways. And we really just want to help others to be encouraged and to lift up the body of Christ.
Yep.
And so whatever we can do to do that. And so if you have, again, a congregation or somewhere that you think, hey, maybe this is an area that might need a church plant, let us know, because as we're traveling about, obviously we're going to see areas that there's no location of the Lord's body, and so we'll do some research, we'll set up some studies. And also I've already had preachers mention to me, hey, we'll give you a week of our vacation. We'll come out if you're doing a campaign somewhere to help plan a congregation. We'll do that. So if somebody wants to do that, we're more than happy to kind of do that, to do the research, to get things set up, and to kind of kick that off, and hopefully plant the Lord's congregation in a location that it's never been. So that'll be a great thing. Anything else that we need to talk about today?
We'll show video of all of that trip that we talked about in probably in September, later in September, because we'll get back from that around.
Yeah, look for that in a couple
September.
I would say look for it in maybe late August. Maybe we'll have it posted by then.
Well, we don't get back until September.
Well, that's true.
So.
All right, so in September we'll put that together. So I just meant this trip that we just took, though. I want to make sure.
Yes, that'll come out soon.
Look for it. That'll be out in the next couple of weeks, down to Louisiana.
Yes,
and
that was a good one.
That was a really good trip. So we want to tell you about that. So stay tuned.
We just wanted to give y'all a little bit of information about what we're doing, and there's already one podcast up, and that
technically episode 2 is already up as we're recording this.
Yes.
But we're going to try to get this one loaded up too.
We kind of did it backwards.
That's all right. We need to get it out there.
That one tells very in depth. It's Wayne teaching a class about what we're doing, and so if you'll give that a listen too, that'll answer a lot of questions that we aren't covering. Yeah,
much greater detail, and YouTube also has my PowerPoint presentation alongside of it, so you can check that out as well. It's already up on our YouTube page.
But we really do rely on word of mouth with this, and so if you have somewhere that you know of, or if you hear about something, please feel free to email us or message us, and we would love to help them out.
416 Ministries at msop.org.
Yes.
In fact.
Yes.
So, and you can certainly reach out to the Memphis School of Preaching. They know how to get in touch with us, and they'll get us a message very quickly, and we'll get back with you. So thank you
y'all so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today.